Okay, hello. We're going to go over the Vision Zero Action Plan draft, something that probably many people on this call have already helped to create. So thank you so much for being here. Again, I'm Jessica Weinberg, the Vision Zero Policy Director with the City of Milwaukee. Let's dive in. So our agenda today, and actually I want to make a note. There's someone with a video on who's driving. Please pull over, please turn off your video, please pull over. We're here all about road safety, so it's really hard if somebody's driving and trying to do this meeting. If it's just audio, maybe that's okay. But other than that, we really want to be careful and not cause any crashes out there. Thank you. So our agenda today is to really dive into the Vision Zero Action Plan. I'll give a little, we're going to go over elements that are in the plan. There's a full website and a number of open houses that are coming up for you to get even more information. But for today, we're going to do a Vision Zero overview. We're going to talk about how traffic violence is hurting our community and some of the data that informs the plan, how we use community engagement to really push the plan along, what strategies and actions have come out of all of this input, and then how we're going to be implementing the plan and what are next steps to actually adopt the plan. So we'll try to get through all of those things today in a little less than an hour. So broadly speaking, Vision Zero is a very important idea, and simply it's that the vision that we're working towards is that we should have zero traffic fatalities and life-changing injuries from traffic crashes. So when we say Vision Zero, it's really that we're switching things up and making the goal of our transportation planning to be zero deaths and life-changing injuries. So really this means we are not accepting death or serious injury. We're going to admit that humans make mistakes and design a system that works even when people make mistakes. We are going to remember that humans are vulnerable, and it's our duty as the maintainers and owners of the transportation system to keep them safe. There's a shared responsibility to create safety. It can't just be the city of Milwaukee. It really is so many players, individuals, different governments. And then safety is truly proactive, and we need to have redundancy. So through this planning process, we came up with lots of different layers of actions that we think when they're all piled on top of each other will really lays out the path for how we can get to zero traffic fatalities in the future. And as a community, there's a number of benefits that we should see as we move towards Vision Zero. We'll be preventing unnecessary harm and human loss of life. We'll be expanding safe transportation options for people, and we'll be using data to really prioritize our efforts and go where we can make the biggest impact and save the most lives first. So a key thing with Vision Zero is really remembering the people who sadly have lost their lives to traffic violence, and that we do not want this to continue into the future. Each of these people here lost a loved one, Talise, Xavier, and Aaron, and these surviving family members are big supporters of trying to make our streets safer. And when we think about the difficult trade-offs we might have to make in our transportation safety, we hope that we can think a little bit more about these families and the losses they've had. And really that's why we're pushing to make really fundamental changes, is because we wish Aaron and Xavier and Talise were still here today. They really should be. So what is traffic violence? This is a term we're starting to use more to really center the human impact that is caused by traffic crashes. So traffic violence is an expansive term that can talk about the people who are both killed or injured seriously with life-changing injuries in crashes. And then you'll hear me also really saying crash and not accident. That's also very intentional. Crashes are not accidents because crashes are preventable and they're a violent public health crisis. We can't end this with just words, but our words do matter. And the first step to putting in place the systematic solutions that we need to end this epidemic is to recognize that we have a true problem and that we can fix it. I want to thank Amy Cohen, the co-founder of Families for Safe Streets, for that quote. But we talk about crashes because they are preventable And we talk about traffic violence because we want to focus on the way that humans are really endangered and killed by our current system, and that we want to move towards one where there is zero of that. So when we look at traffic violence and we want to be data driven, a key thing is to develop a high injury network. So the city of Milwaukee developed a high injury network in 2023 based on data from a few years before that. We are in the process of updating that high injury network as well, now that there's a few more years of data, but it's not too different. So, but the overall idea is that the city of Milwaukee is going to continually be updating a high injury network, really looking at our crash reports, seeing where the crashes that kill or severely injure the most people are located over time, and then work to prioritize solutions on those streets. One small note is that the city of Milwaukee does not own or maintain every street that is in the high injury network within the city of Milwaukee, and that really points to the need for us to have lots of partners with other government agencies. But in short, the high injury network is the 10% of street miles in the city of Milwaukee that account for 58% of fatal and severe injuries. So as we worry about how big this problem is, and traffic violence is a big problem, but it really is happening the most in certain spaces, and so we can focus on implementing changes in those locations, and that's a key aspect of this plan. Another thing when we look at the data is that people who are walking and biking are disproportionately likely to be killed or seriously injured in crashes. When you are walking or biking, you don't have a vehicle around you protecting you in the event of a crash. So when people are walking and they're in a crash, there's a 17% chance of a severe injury or death. And 6.5% when you're biking. But if you're driving, it's less than 1% chance that you'll have those outcomes. So really, we need to focus on prevention. We want to prevent crashes with people walking, because when people are hit, almost 1 out of 5 has a severe injury. So that is another area where we know we need to focus. From 2021 to 2023 in the city of Milwaukee, Black and African Americans were twice as likely to be killed in a traffic violence incident, a traffic crash, than people of the white or other races. So, we need to be focusing on who's suffering the most traffic violence. And sadly, African Americans do have twice the incidence of white Milwaukeeans. This is a little update on what is happening with traffic violence more recently. That high injury network was based on data that's a couple years old now. But if we just look back at our 2024 data, and this is very preliminary because crash investigations and injury outcomes are still ongoing. But we can see 69 people were killed in the city of Milwaukee due to traffic violence in 2024. And this, is coming down from our numbers every year except for 2021. So that's very positive. And then you can also see that on the right side, the fatalities, the pink dots, still are following the same patterns as our high injury network, that many of the pink dots and blue dots of vehicle, pedestrian, and motorcycle fatalities are on that high injury network, which is gray in this map. So even though the high injury network data is a couple years old, it is pretty predictive of where issues are going to continue to occur. And so that is where we want to be focusing. So what is the plan? Now that we have this data in mind, which is overviewed in the plan, we'll dive a little more into what the document actually has. So the plan really is our roadmap or our map to see where we're going. We want to, as a community, have a destination in mind and see how we're going to get there. So we created a community-driven plan with 7 overarching goals and 100 action items. We had a plan process to get us to those final recommendations. We worked with the community to brainstorm and identify the problem. We had community engagement for a whole year, and an advisory committee launched. We then reviewed and selected strategies and actions. We drafted the actual document, and then right now where that little pink flag is where we are currently. We're at community engagement round 2. So we have the draft plan completed, and now it's time for community members to review the plan, the strategies, those actions, and let us know if it reflects community priorities. And then we'll move into plan adoption in May and June. So that's the big overview for the plan. We said it was community driven, and a big part of that was that over 1,000 residents helped inform it and participated across either 3 open houses, in-person surveys at libraries and parks and community meetings. We had an open online survey and 2 advisory groups. And I just want to say thank you to anybody who participated in any of the round 1 public input. And right now, by being here, you're participating in round 2. Much appreciated. The information from round 1 really helped create the plan, and now we're checking back in to see if we got it right. In that community survey and in the open houses, we learned that there's a lot of shared desires about what the community wants. People were very clear that they want streets that are designed for safety over speed. They want traffic laws enforced. They want alternatives to driving improved and high-tech solutions explored, including things like automated traffic camera enforcement. That's currently illegal in Wisconsin, but it is something we can work to change the state law on. So when you look at this chart, it kind of shows that across racial groups, designing streets for safety over speed and enforcing traffic laws were really the shared number 1 and number 2 items. So, those are high priorities that we wanted to carry through into the strategies. Some other key findings: 71% of people said that they do want to walk or bike more. It just needs to be safer for them to do that. 72% of people avoid certain streets because of traffic safety issues. And 61% of survey respondents personally know someone who's been seriously impacted by traffic violence in the city of Milwaukee or been impacted themselves. So, this is an issue so many of us know very, very personally. And that's why we hope we can find some good solutions that we all support implementing. So that public input helped inform the key meat of the plan, which is these 7 overarching goals. Build safe streets for all users, prioritizing the high injury network, supporting accountability in the justice system with a focus on prevention, creating vibrant people-centered places, promoting traffic safety through communication, encouragement, and education, ensuring timely and effective EMS and medical care, advocating for safer vehicles, and then championing state law changes. So these are our big 7 overarching goals that we think really reflect what people have been saying were concerns and areas we needed to act in the outreach process. And then as we dive into the plan, there's about 100 action items that can be taken to help make these goals be achieved. And I want to thank all the different city departments on the right who work to develop, who are key supporters of Vision Zero, and who work to develop action items to help deliver on these goals. We'll go a little bit one by one to help make real each of these 7 overarching goals. So, what does building safe streets for all users, prioritizing the most dangerous streets look like? If you go to our website, you can see the full plan, and you can see 2 pages of action items that spell out how this can be achieved. But a summary of some of those is here. So we're going to prioritize safety improvements on the high injury network, operationalize the Complete Streets Handbook, proactively address safety concerns in high-risk areas, such as schools, improve light signs and signals to reduce speeds and promote pedestrian safety, and utilize the city transportation and mobility plan, which is coming up soon, to help prioritize projects and implement more of these action items. as well as prioritizing transportation options. So that's one example of some of the big ideas that'll help us achieve safe streets, prioritizing the most dangerous. And then our number 2 in the survey, and in priority broadly speaking, is support accountability in the justice system with a focus on prevention. So we want to equitably focus traffic law enforcement on driving behaviors that contribute to death and injury. We want to support court system options that emphasize prevention, education, accountability, and harm repair. We want to improve the administration of transportation safety laws to deter dangerous behavior, support prevention, and provide justice to impacted families. And an example of maybe that last one is that recently the way the Department of Transportation and Milwaukee Police were marking when people had suspended or revoked or non-existent driver's licenses was limiting people's ability to get a second one. And people were having many incidents of driving without a license recorded without getting some real consequences. And now, due to a change in how that's getting recorded on some internal systems, we can more appropriately administer that law, helping get people who don't have valid license off the road. And more examples like that are in the plan as well. We want to foster vibrant, people-centered places. We don't want to think about public right-of-way as just the street for vehicles moving back and forth, but streets or alleys. In this case, this is Black Cat Alley that was an alley and now is a vibrant art space. What are creative ways we can use our public spaces that help make them places that people want to be and invest in and can meet their neighbors at, and are not just about vehicles moving through? Promoting traffic safety through communication, encouragement, and education is another big goal. So here we want to conduct proactive community outreach on street projects. We want to educate the public more on traffic laws, the importance of slower speeds, traffic violence, traffic calming effectiveness, and Vision Zero broadly. We want to develop ongoing multi-channel community engagement methods, build a culture of safety, centering those most impacted by traffic violence, and support transportation education for all ages, transportation methods, and abilities. Ensure timely and effective EMS and medical care. We want to implement technology and quality improvement changes, promote the safety of workers and first responders through technology and enforcement to improve driver compliance with work zones and emergency closures. Advocate for safer vehicles. This looks like advocating for federal regulations and law changes that can make vehicles safer, especially for pedestrians. This vehicle, there was a crash and the airbags deployed, and that very likely greatly reduced the injuries of the person driving, and that's a wonderful thing. We also want to see how we can have some more protections for people outside of vehicles. Between seatbelts and airbags, we've made vehicles relatively safe in many crashes and much more survivable, but we've federally kind of dropped the ball on people outside of the vehicle and really thinking about what are technologies that can keep them safer. We also can incentivize smaller and lighter vehicles to reduce crash impacts, and that's just an area of exploration at this time. But the heavier and bigger a vehicle is when it hits anything, but especially a pedestrian, the more dire the outcomes. So making sure, even as a city, when we're purchasing vehicles, are we looking to buy the smallest vehicle that might be able to do the job because we're keeping those downstream outcomes in mind. Champion state level changes. The city of Milwaukee certainly has to operate within the legal framework of the state of Wisconsin, and there's a few things that are really holding us back compared to some other states. The biggest of which is automated traffic camera enforcement that is currently prohibited at the state level, and that falls under advocating for state level Vision Zero policies. But having the ability to at least do a pilot program in Milwaukee would be a huge boon for safety and is a tool that we would love to see in our toolbox. And we hope we can work with the state legislature in the future to enact that. We want to enhance accountability for unsafe driving. We want to reform licensing and regulations to promote safety and equity and secure diverse and sustainable funding to implement all of these recommendations in this plan. And then so those are our big 7 goals and just a sample of some of the themes of action items that might fall under them. Again, you can find way more details on the Vision Zero webpage. But with all those ideas, we really have to think about implementation. So how are we going to be implementing those? We're going to develop some structures for oversight, a Vision Zero Community Advisory Committee. We're going to continue the Mayor's Vision Zero work group to focus on city-led efforts in implementation. And then we're going to use data and research to monitor trends and analyze root causes, and then also share that information out with the public. We need to measure and report our progress. Is what we're doing working? Are we making meaningful progress on Vision Zero? Is the situation getting better, getting worse? When I look at the data, I really do think it is getting better. We saw less fatalities last year than the 2 years before, but 69 is still just way too high, and we need to do more. But we need that to be a community conversation where we come together and look at those sorts of numbers and make decisions about what to do next collectively. So next steps, specifically for this plan, we want to build on community assets. We want to implement it. We want you to share your feedback, and then we want to adopt it. So building on community assets, I want to thank, this is just a sampling. I'm sure we forgot some logos here, but I'm just so thankful for so many community partners who are supportive of Vision Zero, who advocated for Vision Zero, who participated in this plan, who talk about why making these safety improvements really is important. And there's so many benefits. Just thank you to all of these groups and many more for being part of making this plan. And we want to continue to build on those community assets when we think about implementation. So in that, we had a whole goal around education. These are some, obvious partners that are doing work in the education space, and how can we collectively expand and scale up their work is a goal that we have. Next is for you to share the plan and share your feedback. So thank you so much for being at this webinar today. You can take the online survey that's been shared in the chat. You're welcome to come to one of our 2 in-person open houses on April 15th and April 22nd. You have through April 24th to share your feedback on this plan. That's when we're closing public input. Because we need to close it on April 24th so that we can have all the public input that's been received integrated into the next draft that will go to the Public Safety and Health Committee. It's scheduled for May 22nd. All these dates are tentative and could change. If it gets passed at that meeting, it would go to the Common Council for their June 3rd meeting. And then shortly thereafter, the mayor would sign the resolution that makes this plan an official document for the city of Milwaukee. So that's an overview of the plan, and we are happy to have your questions. I want to thank everybody who participated, who supported a meeting, who took a survey, who's been working in this space. The city of Milwaukee is simply trying to make a plan that collects the work that everybody's doing and the ideas from the community, and then thinks about what new things could be implemented and by who. But we are just the facilitator, a convener of this plan. It's a plan for every resident, every business, everybody who cares about safety in the city to have an element of and either implement or help shape. And so I want to thank you so much, and we can check in on the chat for a few questions.